We've worked our whole lives, saved and invested just to achieve financial freedom, and been led to believe that instead of painting the perfect financial picture, everyone's plan is the same. But the truth is, no one is like you, and you deserve a financial strategy just as unique as you are. How do you navigate the complexities and volatility of a financial environment that just never sits still? And how do you find the guidance you need? Who do you trust with the wisdom to paint your financial masterpiece? You've arrived. This is the Wealth Council. Thanks for joining us on the Wealth Council. I'm Brad Johansson with independent advisors from around the country to answer the questions that mean so much to you as you enter retirement, or some of you who are already in retirement and still have questions about what you should be doing. We're going to talk about tax-efficient strategies here with our gentlemen who have joined us today. Greg Taylor out of Ohio and Stuart Willis out of Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, Oregon, and soon to be in Indiana. Out of Tennessee, Gary Thurman. Gentlemen, always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
Let's talk about some of these strategies because people don't like to talk about taxes. We understand that, but we are now in the third most tax-efficient bracket, which lends us to strategies that we now know are going to be in place at least for about another year and a half, and then we don't know what rules are going to change. Why is this so important, Gary?
I think it's vital. I think we have a tax storm coming. You know, I look at it like a hurricane. You know, we know plenty of time when a hurricane's coming, where it's going to land. That's what's happening right now. We're going to have some higher taxes. They're coming down the pipeline. So it's in a hurricane season, so you got time to prepare. And you just said we're in the third lowest tax bracket we've ever been in. Why are you not making preparations now for tax-free money down the road? I think it's so important, Stu.
Absolutely. Fantastic metaphor there. I've never thought of it that way. I think it's a good way because, I've been telling people for the last couple of years, it's not about what you make, it's about what you keep. And look, we were sold the big lie that, hey, if you put your money away tax deferred, that when you retire, your income will be lower and so will your taxes. Well, what no one ever told you was that even if you're at the same bracket or a lower bracket, your tax-deferred money is now going to make other things taxable that may not need to be, like Social Security, or you may start getting penalized on things like Medicare down the road.
Yes. Well, they're already getting penalized on Medicare if they earn over $206,000 this year as a couple on the Medicare Part B. They're going to pay what I call that hidden tax, which is extra premium on Medicare Part B and Part D. Mm-hmm. So those are things we have to think. But when you think about it, we go to someone each and every year for tax preparation, and we expect to get tax advice, tax planning, but are we really getting that?
Well, I can tell you this. The one thing I'll tell you is, we have a tax practice, and whenever we hire a CPA or an enrolled agent, we have to untrain them and retrain them because they have the habit of trying to be the hero for that year, to save as much as they can that year.
Yes.
They're basically cutting off their nose to spite their face, right? They're trying to be the hero for that tax season, and what they've done is create these massive tax time bombs for down the road, and our job is to unwind it.
Well, I said that at the top. It's a year and a half when people are watching this. We're looking at the end of December of 2025, when we know that the tax codes, unless something else is done, are going to revert back. We don't know that they're going to go up, but why wouldn't we think they're going to go up if you're more than $34 trillion in debt, and those who are holding money in deferred tax accounts hold $38 trillion.
Yeah, and so there's a very clear place that the government can collect their money. Remember, we were going through a lot of other, tax proposals in the past. One of them wanted to tax wealth. Now, wealth is a hard thing to tax because, getting capital appreciation, understanding valuation every year, I don't think it's going to happen. But it's really easy to read your 1099. And that's what you get when you start taking money out of your IRAs and 401ks and thrift savings plans. And that's your tax time bomb that you need to have a plan for.
Brad, you just said we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if the taxes are going to go up. But if you look at, you just mentioned we're $34 trillion in debt, and that's really not the real number. We all know that.
It's rising by the moment.
They've promised $2 more trillion in debt this year. And just to service our debt, our great country is paying $1 trillion a year to pay the interest on our debt. Guys, taxes are going to go up. And you need to start planning now while we're in a low tax bracket. And guess what? I hope they stay low after the end of next year. I really do. But I think in time, you got to plan. Like you just said, you get your taxes prepared. You don't do tax planning with your CPA. You got to plan for future taxes.
And Greg, I think it's really important to understand, in Ohio, what are you seeing with your clients? Because remember, what they say, what the politicians say is tax the wealthy. But who's the wealthy, right? It's all relative.
Well, it is relative. And if you saved $500,000 in an IRA or $1 million in an IRA, guess what? There's about $38 trillion right now in tax-deferred IRAs, 401ks, TSPs, deferred compensation plans. To me, that's like the government's secret weapon, is how are we going to pay off $34 trillion in debt? Well, there's $38 trillion sitting here right under our noses, and guess what? We have partial ownership of those accounts.
Give me some solutions. If I have till the end of 2025, I got the problem. Give me some solutions.
We got to look at Roth conversions, right, Stu? I mean, that, to me, that is key. That's all we're talking about in our practice right now is Roth conversions because of the future taxes.
No question. And what a Roth conversion is when you take your existing IRA, your 401k, your thrift savings plan, and you pay the taxes now while taxes are low. Because we believe, what we're talking about in a year and a half going away and the taxes going up is the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, resetting. Basically, we're going back to where we were before. We lose our standard deduction, the high standard deduction, it reverts back, it goes away. And taxes are going up. So we have 2 years, this year and next year, to take advantage of the most efficient tax window in history. And the way you do it is know where you stand. You should know what tax bracket you sit in. And if your advisor has never picked up your tax return after they're done and said, hey, you know what? I see some room here to work. You're missing out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is for a second opinion, Greg. We talk about perspective and the people who are coming into the office, and you're starting to mention taxes to people coming in, and they go, oh, I had a guy before, he never mentioned any of this. Why is that so common with people that we see coming in?
Because people that aren't retirement planners, they're not paying attention to this because they're working with people in the accumulation phase.
There you go.
They're trying to accumulate wealth for the future. Now we're dealing with people that are getting ready to retire, and guess what? The future is now. Payday is someday. It's like the old Fram oil filter commercial, pay me now or pay me later. Well, guess what? It's time to pay up. And if the 12% bracket goes up to 15%, guess what? That's over a 20% increase.
It's huge.
Yeah.
If taxes are on sale right now, why would we not take advantage of the sale?
You know what, Greg, what's amazing about that? The taxpayer relief came out in 1998. That's when Roth IRAs were introduced to us. And they wasn't really popular in 1998. Boy, they're popular now.
Well, and you know what? Here's the thing. People ask all the time, if Roth is so great, why aren't more advisors suggesting it? Because remember, they know that if your money's in an IRA or a thrift savings plan or a 401k, you're never going to spend that money. You're going to be so afraid of the tax bill that you're never going to enjoy your retirement because you're going to be afraid to spend it. You're going to be held captive in that tax jail if you have that tax deferral. So have a tax plan, have a financial plan, make sure you understand where you're coming from a tax perspective.
Well, this is your chance now. Call the number in your screen, click the QR code, because we have the ability to provide you with a tax map. A complete retirement savings plan for you comes from the Wealth Council. Remember, it's the council's wisdom, but it's your wealth. Call now.
From clutter to clarity, let the Wealth Council clean up your retirement junk drawer. Next.
Think of how much you've saved in your 401k, 403b, or TSP retirement accounts, okay? You have that number? Great. Now, subtract 20 to 30% from that number for taxes. That's how much you actually have saved. Call the Wealth Council at 844-463-3466 right now for your free retirement tax guide. Your 2024 tax guide is free for the viewers of the Wealth Council, so call now, 844-463-3466, or scan the QR code below from your smartphone camera.
Welcome back to the Wealth Council. I'm Brad Johansson. Let's talk about a plan, because in so many of these segments we say you need a plan. Probably at the end of this segment I will say you need a plan, and yet you don't really know what the plan is. Let's go from clutter to clarity on a plan. Let's outline how that plan works out. Independent advisors around the country, Ben Fuchs out of Connecticut and Brittany Hagee out of Tennessee. What's a plan entail, Brittany? Because we say it all the time. Well, I got a plan. As a matter of fact, I may say I have a plan and I don't have a plan just
That's
because
right.
my plan is this is what I got.
Right. I think it's best to start by saying what it's not.
Okay.
And an investment in itself is not a financial plan. A 401k, an IRA, that is not a plan. That's part of the plan.
But many people think it is.
That's right.
Okay.
That's where they get tripped up. And so they bring in, most of the times people bring in statements when we sit down in a consultation. 14 different accounts, 14 different places, paperwork everywhere,
We like
right?
to call that the junk drawer.
That's right, that's what it is. And I read this article, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks ago, and it sparked my thinking. It talked about how neuroscientists say that cleaning, like a physical room, cleaning can have emotional and mental benefits for you. And I thought, especially for women, because when we walk into a room and we see mess and clutter and chaos, our cortisol levels spike.
Okay.
I can say for me, that's true.
Fair enough.
And
I
so-
can say for me that's not, but I respect I respect where you're coming from.
Hey, but I have a lot of men in my life who don't feel that way.
Really?
But anyway,
Because you've trained them correctly, right? I
well,
like
my
that.
husband may not be one of them.
There you
But my point is, when I read that, I thought, man, how much can that apply to our financial life? When our financial life is in disorder or chaos, when things are just everywhere and there's no order, there's no structure, how does that impact us mentally and emotionally?
Now that you've brouut that up, I want to cite a T. Rowe Price survey that says 62.5 are now more confident because they have a financial plan. This becomes more emotional, which is what we always guard against, is making emotional financial decisions. But if you have a plan, there is peace of mind, Ben?
There is peace of mind because you understand the structure. I mean, a plan is a combination of things. Specifically for people who are approaching retirement, you need to know where your income is coming from and what the investments are that are producing it. You need to understand when you're taking Social Security, how it's going to be tax efficient, where your money goes when you're not here. All those things are part of a plan, and of course, healthcare. I remember during COVID, we had that period where all of a sudden everything dropped, right? It was like 10% in a day and then 12% in a day. And I remember thinking, all right, I'm going to call a lot of my clients. I'm going to remind them that they have a plan. And I did that. And I got through, probably 40, 50 calls. The most gratifying thing that I heard was that they said, we weren't worried because we know we have a plan with you. That was huge.
Those are nice calls to make. And the interesting thing, as I go into this T. Rowe Price study, and I have to smile when it says 7 in 10 are currently in the process of putting a formal retirement plan together. Now, it doesn't go to the end because 7 in 10 in the process a lot of times don't finish that process.
You got to see it through. You can't just know it. We talk a lot at our firm about how it's not just the knowledge, but it's taking the knowledge and the information you learn and putting some action behind it. So not just beginning, not just being in the middle, but seeing it through to completion. Because when you do have all these components together, the tax planning, the income planning, the estate planning, healthcare, all of those things considered, it really does bring a peace of mind and clarity from all the chaos and clutter.
So I think it's interesting that you bring that up because I met with clients maybe 2 months ago, and they're great savers. They had over $5 million. It was wonderful.
Done a super job.
They did an excellent job. However, they had over 30 different accounts. We run around those basic Morningstar reports where you see, how many of their investments all own the same thing. They had 36 different mutual funds that all owned Amazon, 30-something that all owned Apple. And so here they were with all these plans, all over the place. Great job saving, no plan whatsoever. And so part of that goal was when they became clients was that little side of okay, they're slowly transitioning from that clutter that you talk about, those high quarter, to being able to, I feel, have some peace of mind.
So maybe what you've been in is the Department of Redundancy department. And maybe you need to get out of the clutter and find some clarity. When we talk about building a plan for you, it is not for everybody else. It is for you to understand what you have and how you can move forward with what you have. And maybe it's just clearing up the junk drawer. Call the number on your screen. Let's help you get out of clutter and into clarity. Click the QR code. Let's put a plan together just for you. It's reality. You need to clean things up. And wouldn't you like to feel better about that? We can help. Call now. Wealth Counsel returns after this.
Are you preparing to make your retirement funds work for you while not taking too much risk? While there is no substitute for sitting down with an independent financial advisor, why don't you learn the strategies of investing as well? Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Council right now to learn about investment strategies that align with your goals. Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Council right now. 844-463-3466. That's 844-463-3466.
Welcome back to the Wealth Council. Brad Johansson with Advisor Spotlight. Jay Hagee joining us from Tennessee. I'm intrigued by this because I know a little bit of your backstory.
Okay.
I want people to understand how you got into this business, which is it's not a traditional run into financial planning.
No, it really isn't. I grew up in a minister's home, so I watched my parents serve the community and serve folks.
Both of the ministers?
Yeah, absolutely. My dad pastors the church, and actually now my mom is a minister in the church. So they both ministered, served the community, and gave me a passion, passed that along to me to serve others well. I actually followed in their footsteps when I come out of college and started working at a local church. I was actually a worship pastor for a while, and so I played music. And so I enjoyed leading people into worship and doing that, which led me into the executive pastor role, where I was teaching people finance.
This is where you're going to be, right? You're going to stay in the church.
That's right. That was my thought process all along. Serving people well, serving where my heart was leading me to do at the time. And so, I started teaching finance classes to folks in the church. And when we were teaching this, I realized there were a lot of things that I didn't know. And, because my dad and my mom had taught me well, they were very good with saving money, but the investing piece, they missed it a little bit.
That was a little more difficult.
It was a little more difficult. And so I went back to school. I went back to Emory University and got my certificate in financial planning and wanted to really know and understand, if I'm going to serve these people and teach finance, I want to be educated and have something to give them, right?
But you didn't stay in the church.
I didn't. It's not that I didn't think I was effective in the church. It's just I really found my passion when I was leading people and seeing light bulb moments come off to where their finances could change, to where they would then maybe even have generational changes in their families and their households because of this thing in finance that way I was helping them teach.
So you said you wanted to be in service.
Right.
And you would think that you had found your spot.
Right.
This became, you felt more in service by doing something different outside the church.
It wasn't that it was more of a service. It was that I got to extend that service to other folks that maybe not ever come and interact with me in a local church, right? That I would be able to take it outside the four walls of where I was at and be able to spread that farther than my current reach.
What's this done for you, this change?
It's been awesome. Like, it's been a journey. It's been over a decade now that we've been riding this roller coaster, and I've been able to see folks' lives change on a one-on-one, around the round table conversation where we're having, it used to be a platform on a local church and I was speaking to hundreds of people at a time. I actually like the one-on-one. I actually like me meeting with a family around their living room table, their dining room table. And I think that makes more of impacts than me just speaking broadly to a large congregation. And so it's really changed my perspective in how I'm to serve one family at a time so that I can help change folks' lives for the better, hopefully.
We're glad you're serving with the Wealth Council.
Nice glad to do it. Thank you.
Jay, thank you. Give us a call. Let's help you write your story. It may be different than you ever thought. Thanks for being with us. Wealth Council continues after this.
Think of how much you've saved in your 401k, 403b, or TSP retirement accounts, okay? You have that number? Great. Now, subtract 20 to 30% from that number for taxes. That's how much you actually have saved. Call the Wealth Council at 844-463-3466 right now for your free retirement tax guide. Your 2024 tax guide is free for the viewers of the Wealth Council, so call now, 844-463-3466, or scan the QR code below from your smartphone camera.
Welcome to the Wealth Council. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, and I'm joined today by Angela Winstead of Retire Simply and Christina Ping-Kepperling of Powerful Legacy. Ladies, I have a very interesting study today that was actually published in Forbes magazine. It's something that we can spend some time talking about. There are some emotional hurdles that people need to go through when they are going into the retirement years. Angela, one of the first ones that came up was uncertainty. Do you have a lot of people that come in that are just uncertain of what their future will look like once they retire?
Oh, Cynthia, you bet we do. And it makes sense, right? This is a stage of life that they've never gone through before. A lot of people, when we talk about retirement, it's just you're retiring, right? We don't talk about what we have to go through, what's changing in our lives. And the fact of the matter is almost everything changes. Our daily routines change, our patterns change, who we talk to changes. There's a lot more than just the money change.
Absolutely. Christina, one of the other emotions that come up would be anxiety. People feel anxious about retirement because they simply don't know what to expect, specifically without having a plan.
Yes, I think one of the greatest anxieties, of course, is going to be running out of money. We all want to make sure that we're going to have enough money to live the lifestyle that we are seeking. And I know that in retirement, things are going to shift so much. The number one thing that I see that happens right out of the gate is that the honey-do list goes through the roof because we know you're going to be spending more time at home. So you want to have those improvements in your home and have more activities with your friends, all the things that you've not been able to do because you've been so busy working, perhaps some travel, or maybe you want to retire to take care of a little grandsy.
That sounds great. Angela, let me talk to you a little bit about the loss of identity, because so often we are tied so closely to our job titles and also our work family. How do people deal with the loss of identity?
Well, I think the first thing is actually acknowledging it, right? And talking about it and saying, yes, you used to be Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, and everybody saw you this way. One of the things that I like to share with people is, hey, this is the next chapter of your life. Now you get to recreate that. You get to define that anew. And we do that either with intention, right, as we're talking about it, or without intention. It just happens to us. So really being top of mind in the way that you're going to create this next stage of your life is critical. Of course, you want your money in order. That really having that stability of having a plan and knowing where everything's going to come from and knowing how you're going to deal with all the uncertainty of retirement is critical and essential. But it gives you the foundation and the peace and the breath to be able to recreate who you are in this phase.
Angela, thank you so much. Christina, this is a big one, loneliness. How do we help people offset loneliness, especially when they're so tied to their work family?
I think that loneliness comes in so many different milestones. You know, first off, when you're graduating, when you are marrying and you move out of your family home, or perhaps you've had a divorce, let's just say that when you're ending your career and moving into retirement, that can be one of the loneliest times ever because it has defined your everyday life for so long. And I know a lot of folks that say, I'm truly lonely. I just don't know who to talk to. I don't know what to talk about anymore. And then I heard someone give a little friendly reminder. Well, remember, you were talking to all of those significantly younger coworkers and you didn't really have anything in common anymore. So now I'm seeing a lot of people that are curbing that loneliness with maybe a little bit of pickleball or getting out there and joining some gyms or a women's group, having a Bible study, something that really hits their hobbies. Look forward to something instead of looking backward and being lonely.
89.5 million people across the country are playing pickleball now. Did you know that?
Yes,
I did not know those stats, but it's fantastic.
It really is. Angela, I want to talk to you about when roles change within the home, when one spouse retires before the other.
Oh, okay. Well, I am big on relationship and patterns. That's just who I am. So I always like to look at it as a brand new space to play in, right? You know this person, but you're going to have a completely different relationship with them just because you're interacting with them differently. Sure. So I like people to take the idea or the mindset of how do we make this to our advantage? And a lot of times I'm finding, you know, if you can pick up something new. For example, I have a great couple. They used to eat out all the time, but now not only do they eat out together, they take cooking classes. That's not something they had time to do when they were both working, but now they're retired. It's just a different way of expressing together a lot of your same hobbies and habits. So I think it's important to look back and be aware that you're making changes, but it's also important to look forward and see the advantage to creating anew.
Absolutely, because it's not the end of the book.
No.
It's just the next chapter.
Yes.
And to help offset any anxiety or depression, Christina, you and Angela are both passionate about one thing, the written financial plan. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely. You know, we've all heard those phrases that if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And so many times we're seeing people that are coming into our firms and they do not have a real financial plan. Let's sit down, let's talk about this, let's get this together. And we do know that for a lot of you out there, you're thinking, what do I need to get my plan together? We're gonna let you know. We can drop you a message and let you know what documents you would need to bring to speak with a professional. We're all across the country, empowering each other, making sure that we're going to get that financial plan in place.
Ladies, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, this is your opportunity on the Wealth Council to glean your very own written financial plan. Thank you for watching.
Are you preparing to make your retirement funds work for you while not taking too much risk? While there is no substitute for sitting down with an independent financial advisor, why don't you learn the strategies of investing as well? Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Council right now to learn about investment strategies that align with your goals. Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Council right now. 844-463-3466. That's 844-463-3466.
We're all different when it comes to retirement, but most of us have that same lingering question. Can I do this? Well, the Wealth Council is here to say yes, you can. And it's why we emphasize how important it is to have a plan, and not just any plan, a plan that an independent advisor has built just for you. A holistic plan that addresses investing, long-term tax plan, Social Security, and legacy planning to help you navigate the retirement of your dreams. So if you've been waiting and wondering, maybe this is your time. Call or click the QR code now. Reach out to someone that you can trust. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brad Johansson, and until next time, it's the Council's wisdom, it's your wealth.